Felix's POV.
It took a while for me to settle down, but after a few hours sitting with Savolka, I eventually conceded that he wasn't that bad. The rumors were of his brutal violence against anyone who breathed at him strangely, but I've come to learn over this short amount of time that he was only looking for my mate, Alexander, hell-bent on killing anyone that was or could have been involved with his kidnapping. That's another thing I learned. Alexander was kidnapped from the infirmary of the castle when he was only 1 year old. The thought of losing a small child like that makes me feel sick. I can't imagine the grief and stress he must have went through. And on top of that, losing his mate as well. He said she died from a heart attack, most likely caused by the sheer amount of heartbreak she had over losing her only child, the only baby she was ever able to have. We were currently sitting in my apartment at the top of the pack house. Alexander was laying on the couch, his head resting on Sevolka's lap. Every now and then he would gently rub his fingers through Alexander's hair. It made my wolf immensely jealous. He never calmed down. But I had to try my best to keep myself in control. My mate was currently asleep, and I didn't want to wake him up.
So, what do you plan on doing now? There's no way you're taking him back with you.
He nodded solemnly, an almost unreadable look on his face, but I could see the sadness. He would not survive without you, therefore I cannot have him back. But I will be in his life from now on.
I'm okay with you staying here to spend time with him. It would be cruel of me to not allow either of you that chance. However, I would request that you stay alone or with minimal people. There are far too many arguments and situations I have to deal with already. I don't want to add to that by bringing more people to the pack house.
He opened his mouth to reply, but a knock on the door interrupted him.
Yes?
Alpha, there have been rogues spotted close to the pack central. We believe they're planning an attack. The warriors spotted at least 5 dozen camping out sporadically. Female Alpha is already running safety protocol inside the walls. What do you want us to do? I sighed, not wanting to leave my mate alone with him.
This is important. You should deal with it promptly. Stay in the apartment. You're welcome to use any amenities needed while you're here. Just take care of my mate and don't cause problems.
Konečno. Take your time. Do well.
Of course.
Alexander, POV. I woke up to something warm holding me. It confused my foggy mind when it didn't smell or feel like Felix, but when I opened my eyes to see a pair of red eyes on pale skin staring back at me, the memories of my father returned. Good morning, moya Lyubov. Morning, Papa. His smile made me feel fuzzy inside.
Felix is going to deal with intruders.
What? Who? His smile faded slightly. It made me worry if Felix was okay.
Rogues. They were seen close to Pack Central, but I am sure your wolf can handle them.
I don't know why him calling Felix my wolf made me feel all kinds of happy. He is my wolf, in the eyes of everyone else, but I had never thought about it like that. It made me wonder if he thought of himself as mine. I'm pretty sure at least his wolf thinks of me as his. He seems very protective over me. They both do.
Are you in need of anything, Lyubov?
I shook my head with a smile, just content to stay in his arms until Felix gets back, and hopefully everything turns out to be okay with him. It was starting to get dark outside when Felix finally came back. I could instantly smell blood on him, and it made me feel sick to think he was injured, though he assured me everything was all right now, and that he'd taken care of it and I'm safe. I still wasn't happy knowing he got hurt.
I must return home now. The souls are restless without proper orders. You will be okay until I arrive next?
Will I see you soon?
He smiled and nodded before turning to Felix, who was still cutting up the food on my plate for me.
I will send you notice of my return date promptly once I can. If anything tries to hurt my child, I trust you will contact me immediately.
Felix nodded with a heavy sigh.
Of course. How shall I contact you?
They began talking about things I didn't understand, so I tuned them out, finding it difficult to focus on anything other than the thought of Felix hurting right now. I could tell he definitely was in pain, but he was very good at hiding it. It was the small breaths and pauses in body movement that gave it away to me. Papa hugged me, saying goodbye and promising to visit as soon as he can. Then he vanished in a blur of black smoke, and it was just Felix and I. He gave me the food and sat down with his plate. We ate in a comfortable silence, apart from the fact I could still see he was hurting. When we finished, he carried me to the bedroom and sat me on the bed. He was about to turn away when I grabbed his hand, making him stop and look at me.
What's wrong, baby? Felix's POV.
His cheeks turned slightly pink, but I could tell something had been troubling him for a while now. I was hoping he would bring it up on his own. I was confused, however, when he only reached for the bottom of my shirt and started pulling at it. So I walked back over to him.
What's bothering you?
He pouted, still pulling at my shirt, but now pulling it up. A million thoughts went through my head in a split second at his actions and what he could possibly be doing. Then I winced when he rubbed a finger over my bruised ribs. His eyes were teary when he looked back up at me. Hurt. I grabbed his hand and got on my knees to be more level with his gaze.
You could tell I was injured, couldn't you?
He nodded.
Is that why you're sad?
Again, he nodded. I smiled a little and kissed the top of his hand.
I'm all right, I promise.
He didn't look very convinced.
It's just a bruise. It'll heal very fast, even faster with sleep.
His eyes lit up a little, and he pulled at my hand.
Sleep, now.
I chuckled lightly and let him pull me onto the bed. We got comfortable, and soon he fell asleep with his head on my chest. It made me happy to know he cared so much as to be upset that I was hurt, even though the injury was little. Eventually, I fell asleep as well, comforted by his small body against mine and slow, rhythmic breathing. Alexander's POV. It's been a month now since my father found me. He's been coming over for visits every 4 days. My legs have gotten much better, though I still cannot walk without help. Felix got me some crutches. He's been very busy and we haven't spent much time together at all. I miss him. Alec? I jumped slightly, trying to get the string of the dress I'm supposed to be putting on tied. Yes? Do you need help? I sighed. Putting on clothes is still a struggle for me. I prefer dresses, though they're easier and more comfortable. The first time I tried putting on pants, I got really frustrated and ended up crying. Then I had to embarrassingly ask Felix to help me. I don't want to repeat that incident. There, all done. Now, let's get going, shall we? She smiled and held her arm out to me. I linked my arm with hers, and we started walking. We made it all the way into the garden before I asked, "Where are we going?" "You'll find out." I huffed, not liking surprises. We walked for a while longer. I was getting tired, but eventually we came to a stop at the frozen pond Felix told me about. At the very back end of the garden, the sun was setting, and splayed across the ice was a sunset of beautiful oranges, reds, blues, and purples. I gasped slightly, noticing Felix in his wolf form standing beside a tree.
Felix!
Saya laughed happily as he ran over. "We thought you'd like to have a little fun together. Now are you excited?" I nodded and wrapped my arms around Felix's neck once he got close enough. He licked my cheeks, and I grinned happily. Then he turned his side to me and eyed Saya. "Right, I'll help you up." "What?" "The place you're going is too far for you to walk, so you'll be getting a VIP wolf back ride all the way there." I was too shocked to say anything at first, but she swiftly picked me up and placed me on Felix's back. "Now, hold on tightly here. He'll start slow, so you can get used to it. It's like riding a horse bareback. Though you've never done that. Imagine you're trying to squeeze him in half with your legs. That might help you stay on." No hurting." "You won't hurt him, don't worry. It'll be fun." She directed my hands to grab the fur on the back of his neck. Then she stepped back and gave Felix a thumbs up. He started walking slowly, giving me time to adjust as we began to pick up speed. Saya was quickly behind us in only a minute or two. The air felt even colder hitting against my face at this speed. I soon got the hang of it, though, and the frozen woods blurred past. Not long after we started, Felix slowed to a stop near a really big tree. He then laid down. I assumed that was my cue to get off, so I slid off his back and onto my feet. It was then I realized I didn't have my crutches, so I just stood there, wobbling on my feet. Felix checked me over, then swiftly ran behind the large tree. A few seconds later he was back, this time no longer shifted, and carrying a small blanket with him.
I thought you'd be a little cold after that, so I made sure to bring a blanket.
I smiled happily as he wrapped the blanket around my shoulders. Then he picked me up and carried me around the tree. I was shocked to see the candles in the snow surrounding a hammock and a brown basket lying on the ground.
What do you think?
It's pretty. He smiled and sat down in the hammock with me on his lap.
I know I've been really busy lately. I'm sorry.
No, sorry. It's okay.
I blushed when he gently kissed my nose.
Yes, it's okay now, because from now on, I promise, I'll have more time to spend with you. This is just the start.
He got me situated beside him and then bent down to pick up the basket. Inside, there was an assortment of food items and 2 glass jars filled with water.
I asked Saya to help me make it, so it should be better than what I usually make.
I smiled happily and gave him a quick kiss on the jaw. That's as high as I could reach. He chuckled and we sat in relative silence until we were both full. After eating, he sat the basket down and we laid in the hammock looking at the stars. Stars are so interesting, and the moon too. I didn't know rock could be reflective.
Alec,
I looked up to find him watching me.
how do you like it here?
It's fun. You and Saya make me happy.
He smiled brightly at that, and I rolled onto my stomach to see him better. Our faces were close enough that I could feel his warm breath on my neck.
I'm glad. You make me very happy.
The noises of the forest were completely lost to me as I stared into his eyes. My body was tingling with excitement. I leaned closer to him, gently placing my hand on his cheek.
Felix?
Yes, baby.
Everything in me was saying I should kiss him. I was so nervous.
I love you.
His smile brightened up the dark forest as he leaned closer to me.
I love you too.
He whispered in my ear. I decided to take my chance now that he was much closer.
Felix's POV.
Those 3 words meant so much to me. I couldn't help but smile like crazy after Alec conveyed his feelings verbally for the first time. But then it got even better when he gently brushed his lips against mine. I was so shocked that I didn't kiss him back at first, so my wolf took over. He immediately started leading the kiss. I'm just glad he didn't block me out completely, so I was still able to feel everything that happened. Alec was swiftly pulled on top of us. Placing our hands on his lower back, my wolf started to bring the kiss deeper. When the kiss finally ended, Alec buried his head against our neck, and my wolf rubbed circles on his back. I knew our first kiss would be amazing, but I had underestimated the mate bond still. Amazing wasn't nearly good enough as a description.